Okay. Okay, so we're going to focus on protein and healthy fats at every meal and snack, as well as fiber. Consider baking with a low glycemic flour, like an almond flour or coconut flour. Now, some of these flours aren't going to have like the gluten in them. It's not going to make for a really nice fluffy cake. So you're going to have to do some research to find out the right combinations to get what you want. But I find if you're making like a brownie or a cookie, things of that nature, you can go with the almond flour, which generally has, it's just basically ground up almonds, and it's going to be a lot of fiber and protein in that flour. Consider some alternative sweeteners when you're baking. Like allulose is actually one of my new favorites. It is a natural plant-like substance that isn't supposed to spike blood sugar, but it does have some sugar count to it, unlike monk fruit and stevia that don't have any glucose, right? So it's not going to spike your blood sugar at all. But the allulose I've been using more in some baking, and I actually do put it in my tea as well. I really like it. There is an order of eating to manage your blood sugar. So if you start out eating the carbs on your plate, that's going to spike your blood sugar. But if you eat the carbs last, that's going to help manage that blood sugar spike, okay? So the order you want to eat basically to optimize blood sugar management is fiber first, non-starchy, of course, then protein, then fats, and then carbohydrates. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to, become super strict when I look at my dinner plate and make this, a horrible ritual of sitting down to eat. I want it to be pleasurable. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm not eating all my carbs first, right? I'm going to kind of eat some protein and fiber and fats and incorporate the carbs as I go along. I want it to be enjoyable. There are, by the way, some wearable monitors now that download information to your phone. So you can find out exactly for you, your body type, what types of foods are spiking your blood sugar. And a lot of people are loving these wearables now. Levels is a company that I've been following. And I don't have one. They're a little pricey right now. I think it's $200 plus $100 to get the app. And anyway, it's a little pricey. I haven't ordered it myself, but they are, amazing for figuring out, like for some people, sweet potatoes spike their blood sugar. For others, they don't. So it's really hard to know for you unless you actually do monitor them. Yes, like Dexcom. I think that is another one. A continuous glucose monitor. Yes, thanks, Liz, that's what they're called. So I think those are great. And then a lot of people are noticing that, certain foods will spike their blood sugar, but then if they go out and take a 20-minute walk, it just brings it right back down. And so it's really nice to know that, hey, I can eat that as long as I go for a walk, right? So it's just really good information to know. Eat a savory breakfast. That's another good eating tip for managing blood sugar. That's going to help you throughout the rest of the day, right? If you're just having a smoothie in the morning or fruit with toast, you're probably going to be hungry in an hour or two. But having a savory breakfast with protein and fat can really help satiate you and avoid the snacking before lunch. Breakfast is very, very important. Okay, let's go to our next slide. So some surprising foods to avoid limit. These may or may not be surprising to you. So juice, liquid sugar, obviously is going to, get into your bloodstream much quicker and spike that blood sugar. So I really try to avoid juices as much as possible. Once in a while, I'll have a little bit of pomegranate juice because I think it is so incredibly healthy for us. But other than that, I really try to stay away from juice. And then oatmeal. So this is a big one. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oatmeal is a big one now that people have these continuous glucose monitors. many people spike with oatmeal. So you might want to consider, if you really love your oatmeal, trying to do like a chia porridge or chia flax and hemp hearts. Or if you're like me, I really like oatmeal is very comforting to me, and sometimes I need some comfort food. And so I'll do like part oats and part chia and throw in some hemp hearts to add more protein and fats. But you can also, top your oatmeal with walnuts. You can stir in some almond butter, pour a little bit of coconut oil. I say pour because, we're in Arizona and it's hot and it's very liquidy right now. So I like to just really throw in a lot of fats into my oatmeal if I do have it. Oat or rice milks really should be avoided. Choose the almond or hemp milks instead. So oat and rice, any of those grains are going to probably spike your blood sugar. Toast bread, some of the better ones like the Ezekiel sprouted bread, or make sure it's whole grain. Almond bread or like a flax cracker. Trader Joe's sells these really good flax crackers. They're really big, so you could put like avocado on them or make them into a sandwich and things. Yeah, Liz is asking about the coconut milk. Yeah, I like coconut milk too. That's a good one to add to this slide. Coconut has some great fats, and it doesn't have much, if any, carbs. Okay, avoid soups at restaurants. They're going to add a lot of fillers in there that we're just not aware of, and probably a lot of salt as well. Processed bean and veggie burgers. This was a little surprising to me that apparently they're adding a lot of carbs into that are going to spike our blood sugar. Grapes are one of probably the worst fruit you can eat alone. So don't sit down on the couch with a bowl full of grapes. If you want to have some grapes with some cheese, that's okay, but don't eat handfuls of grapes all on their own. That's one of the biggest things that spike our blood sugar. Berries and kiwi are the more low sugar fruits. So those are good options. Energy bars with sweeteners, those we want to watch out for. And then rice and brown rice and sweet potatoes. I don't think those are probably any surprise to anybody. Okay, there's no questions in the chat, so I'm going to move on. Okay. So when we want to enjoy the occasional, somebody asked about gluten-free bread. I'm glad you asked about that. Gluten-free bread can spike blood sugar like other breads, depending on what they're made with. So some gluten-free breads might be made with coconut flour, and maybe a lot of eggs that help make that bread rise more. That would be a good option, but gluten-free breads that are made with like oat flour or rice flour are probably going to spike your blood sugar pretty good. Okay, so we already talked about moving within 30 minutes after eating carbs, but it's worth mentioning again because it's probably the number one thing you can do if you want to enjoy a slice of pizza once in a while, right? We all want to enjoy that sometimes. A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar prior to eating carbs. So I have to dilute apple cider vinegar if I'm going to have that much of it. But that is one hack that you can do that will help manage that blood sugar. That is something that people have been noticing that works if they wear those continuous glucose monitors. And they've experimented with it and it works really well. So if you want to enjoy that pizza, you're going to go out for pizza with friends, try to sip on apple cider vinegar on the way over there, dilute it in your water, and it can only help, right? Cooling and reheating starches. So I like potatoes, I like rice, but one of the hacks is to actually heat these or cook them and then let them cool in the refrigerator and reheat them. What happens is they turn into resistant starch. So your body doesn't absorb the starches, rather it goes through your digestive system just like a fiber. Okay. So if you've heard of resistant starches, that's what they're referring to. This is worth mentioning. Avoid carbs in the evening, especially. And the reason for this is our digestive system has a circadian clock. Just like our body has a circadian clock, so does our digestion. And what happens is our digestion really slows down in the evening, and then it basically comes to a halt while we're sleeping. And when it's slowing down in the evening, what's happening really is we're not producing as much insulin to help manage that blood sugar. We're not producing as much enzymes in our saliva or in your body. And so we really want to make sure that we're avoiding carbs in the evening, because without that insulin, it's going to be harder to manage that blood sugar. So if you are going to have that treat, try to have it earlier in the day. And then finally here, dress your carbs. You may have heard about this. Dressing your carbs basically means if you're going to enjoy a carb, dress it with protein or fat, or both. So like oatmeal and smoothies, we already talked about what you could add to oatmeal. You could add the same things to your smoothies, and watch the fruit content in your smoothies as well. With rice and pasta, you can, make sure you add protein. Oh, sorry, I keep doing that. Keep clicking. Or some healthy oils or butters. So I like to drizzle olive oil on my pastas. And olive oil is really great with marinara anyway. It helps you to absorb the nutrients in those cooked tomatoes. And then fruit. If you're going to enjoy an apple or banana, add some nut butter to it. That's what dressing your carbs means. Dress them with some protein or fat. And I already talked about the grapes. Okay. So we talked about smoothies. I just want to go into a little more detail here. So add more veggies. If you are a smoothie lover, add more veggies, less fruits. Use low sugar fruits because we need it to taste good, right? If we're going to enjoy it. So I like to add blueberries, a kiwi if I have it. Maybe if I want some banana because it's so nice to make it creamier, I'll use like a half a banana, and not a really ripe banana. As soon as my bananas start, the green is almost gone, I put them in the refrigerator to stop them from ripening more. Or you can chop them up and put them into the freezer for smoothies as well. And then it won't be quite as sweet. And Terry asked about, how about beets in your smoothie? Beets have so many great nutritive value to them that I love beets. However, they do have a good amount of sugar. So just make sure you're, consider them a fruit in your smoothie, and just make sure that you're adding some of these other healthy fats to it as well. Like avocado is fantastic, some coconut oil, nut butter, throw in some nuts or seeds. And then adding protein as well. Protein powders are great, maybe some yogurt. Again, the nuts and seeds and nut butters is good protein. Use water or like an almond milk rather than using juice. And don't drink more than 8 ounces. I think some of us, and I'm guilty of it in the past, is I used to drink these just monster smoothies. And it's even though we're keeping the fiber in the smoothie, we're drinking it very fast because we're not chewing all of this food. And it is going to spike your blood sugar quicker than if you were eating all of it. Okay. Okay. Stress is another thing that impacts digestion and blood sugar. So your stress hormones like cortisol will cause blood sugar to rise. So it's not always what we're eating that's causing blood sugar issues. So, this presentation isn't about managing stress, but just the awareness that we need to make sure that we are considering that. Cortisol is also something our adrenal glands are managing. And so we want to be easy on our adrenals, especially as we get older, because our adrenals are taking on a lot more than they used to. Avoid eating while watching an intense show or watching the news if it upsets you, things of that nature. Okay. Another thing is prioritizing sleep. So I don't know about you guys, but as we get older, sleep is getting harder and harder to manage. But it's really important that we prioritize it and we figure out what's going on with our sleep if there are things going on with it. So improper sleep is going to cause more fluctuations in your blood sugar, as well as causing carb cravings. So they've actually proved now that sleep deprivation causes you to lose eating control. I'm not coming up with the right word, but control over our eating habits. So it's something that we should really, really prioritize. It also is linked to insulin resistance. Okay, so that's the material I have. I'm just going to recap. Move within 30 minutes, plus incorporate strength training. Focus on protein and fats, especially early in the day. Apple cider vinegar before a heavy carb meal. Dress your carbs. So I think you all know that term now. Manage our stress and sleep well and deep. I actually feel like I've become an expert in sleep, and I will probably do a presentation like this on sleep. I have so much great information to share in that area, and I would love if you guys have interest also for you guys to come back for that one. Okay, does sleep deprivation lead to cravings? Yes, particularly carb cravings. So unhealthy eating, and I've noticed it. I mean, it's pretty clear when I don't sleep well that I just am not leaning towards healthy foods. It takes a lot more willpower. Okay, I wanted to share with you guys some of the resources that some of this information I've just learned over time, but most of it, the Levels Health they have the continuous glucose monitor, one of them. And they have great information on their blog if you want to read up on this more. There is a woman that calls herself the glucose goddess. Some information like the dressing your carbs comes from her. I think she uses a different term. I can't quite remember what it is. And then Drew Pirouette, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but he has a podcast called the Broken Brain Podcast with Dr. Mark Hyman is behind that, but Drew does the podcast and interviews the guests. Anyway, there's an episode here that is from the Glucose Goddess that has some really great information on it. And I will share these slides as well as the recording if anybody would like them. And I just want to remind you that I am available for consultations, for one-on-one consultations, if anybody would like one. Those cost $199. And what happens with those is I have you fill out a questionnaire, a very detailed questionnaire, everything that's going on with you. And then I do some research on my end, and then we meet for a couple hours to go through some recommended protocols for you to try to regain your health. And I really love putting puzzle pieces together for people and helping you on your health journey. So I really enjoy doing that. And one of the things I wanted to just highlight during this presentation. And if you want to just see if a consult is right for you, I'm offering free 15-minute phone calls. So you're welcome to get in touch with me about that. And my website is lindacurry.com if anybody wants to check out my website. And we have a question from Christina. Do overnight oats have the same benefit as reheating starches? Great question, Christina. So overnight oats are great, and they do act as a resistant starch. So that is going to not spike your blood sugar as much as cooking your oats and eating them warm. So the resistant starch isn't about reheating them necessarily, but it is about cooling them. So you can cool potatoes, cool the rice or the oats, and eat them cold, and that's going to be a resistant starch. But if you enjoy them warm, you can reheat them, just to get some clarity around that. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen to see if you guys have any other questions. And you can unmute yourself if you would like to just speak instead of putting it in the chat. We can do that.
I was really surprised about the sweet potatoes.
Oh.
I just thought that's such a good fiber.
And you know,
That
they have
just that one.
yeah, they have
Go ahead.
really good health benefits otherwise. So I wouldn't say eliminate them. I would say be mindful when you're eating a meal with them that you have plenty of protein and fat with them, right? I'm not going to stop eating sweet potatoes. And also, please keep in mind that not everyone spikes with sweet potatoes. So unless you tested your blood sugar, you can do a prick. If you don't want to buy one of those continuous monitors, you can do one of those prick tests and test it. I think it's 30 minutes after you eat, 20 or 30 minutes. I can't remember the protocol exactly, but anyway, you could test it for yourself to see if you spike. And then you could also test it when you're eating it with protein and fat. So you just kind of have to, you know, I think we need to do the best we can. We don't want to eliminate all the foods that spike our blood sugar because they can be very healthy otherwise. And we're just talking about, you know, blood sugar, right? They have, you know, when you see that bright orange color in those sweet potatoes, you know, they've got to be good for us, right? Good for our eyes. They have the lutein. And so I don't want to eliminate them necessarily.
Yeah.
Linda, I know for diabetics, they're instructed to test the sugar before eating and then 2 hours after the meal. So I don't know if that would be the same for non-diabetics. 30 minutes is better, or 2 hours is the standard. I have no idea.
Yeah, I wish that I had remembered what that was. I actually, in years past, I did some pricking. I have one of those and I should get back to it, but I forget what that protocol is, Liz, of how much time you should wait to see, yeah, do your resting glucose to kind of get a baseline first, right? And then I couldn't remember how much time after eating it was, but there's probably good data, 30 minutes after eating, an hour after eating, 2 hours after eating, because I think the 2 hour time frame, Liz, is when it's okay if your blood sugar spikes after a meal, but what you want to happen is it to come back down in a reasonable time frame. I think that's the most important aspect of it. And so that 2 hour mark, I think diabetics want to make sure it's come back down within 2 hours.
I see. Whereas doing 30 minutes is important to know if that particular food caused a spike in you. So that's good. That's good to follow, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question about beans and lentils because I know they're high in protein, but they're also carbs. So do they tend to spike?
Yeah, that's a good question. It doesn't seem like they spike as much as some of these other foods that we talked about. So I think it's probably a good balance, Terry, probably like nuts and seeds, and it's probably a good balance. However, I would, when I eat beans, you know, I make sure I have some healthy fats with it as well. Because a lot of times, you know, when I have beans, I'm not having animal protein because the beans are kind of my protein source. I'm trying to like maybe take a break from animal protein. So I have beans, right? So just make sure you add some healthy fats with it.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of fiber. You know, I throw in just tons of veggies if I'm making a stew or a soup or yeah.
Where do tomatoes fall in all of this?
Oh, that's a good question. Using my common sense and just what I've learned, I don't know specifically about tomatoes, but they do have some sweetness to them. And they're, so I would tend to say not to eat a plate of tomatoes all by themselves, right? That's kind of what I would say, dress the carb in that situation. So have them with a meal. You know, if you're putting a tomato slice on a sandwich, you're probably okay. If you're having the mozzarella cheese on them, you're probably okay, right? So I think just it kind of falls into that dress your carb situation.
This is great information. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you found it helpful. I just have learned a lot about metabolic health in the past few years, and I just feel like it's great information to share because a lot of these tips are things we can easily do without having to spend a lot of money on a glucose monitor. I think we can, do the best we can. And if you go to your doctor and you do or you do get a diagnosis of prediabetes, or somebody in your family does, you can share these tips, but your doctor may also give you a glucose monitor so you can test those foods specifically for you. Because not everybody is the same.
Right.
For sure. Yeah. And if somebody works out a lot, even if you're not working out after you're eating, if you're very active, I think those people can get away with eating more carbs because they're burning them.
Right. True.
And if you do strength training, they say that your muscles are being worked, like, I don't know if it's like 2 hours after you've worked out, your muscles continue to work. And so I think that's why strength training got on the tips here, is because, it's going to continue to take those glucose out of your blood throughout the day. What was that? Was that a dog?
The dog was appearing and disappearing, and the head was
Oh,
gone,
I
and then
wanna
it was
see
back.
Paris.
It's so cute.
I want to see
Oh,
Here,
I want to
Paris.
see if it looks like our sweet Stephanie that we had.
Oh,
yes.
This
She
is her.
does, huh? Oh my gosh, what a sweetie.
She is,
Oh,
sweetie. Yes, you are.
I'm so happy for you, Terry.
Oh,
How
she's
long
great
has it
company.
been?
She's really keeping me active.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we hike a lot.
So sweet.
She does look like Stephanie.
She
Does
does.
she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long has it been, Terry, since you lost your last dog?
A year.
A
Just a
year.
little over a
Okay.
year. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really rough one.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Okay.
It was so nice to see you ladies.
You too. Thank you, Linda. This has been great.
Yeah, you bet. Let me know if there's a topic of interest for you, and I can see if I can pull something together.
Well,
Right.
if you do the sleep one, I know I would be interested in that.
Okay,
same here.
good, good.
Yep.
Any other final questions?
I think that's it from me.
Awesome. I'm gonna go do some line dancing then.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
I'm up at the cabin, Liz, and the community here, we started doing line dancing on Thursday nights, and
How
I thought
fun.
they were gonna stop after September, and so I scheduled this not knowing that they were doing it, but they're like, come after your talk.
Oh,
So
yeah. Get on out there, Linda.
do my line dancing.
That's right. Does Richard go with you?
Actually, he's in Mesa right now.
Okay.
He's coming up tomorrow night.
Yeah. That's the beauty of line dancing, though. Just get up there with everybody else.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, ladies.
you.
So nice
Okay,
seeing you. Thank
thank
you for joining.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.